deal.
You mentioned it. You inherit a defense that's been really successful. Dan Quinn, the last 3 years, they've led the NFL in takeaways, in defensive touchdowns, in points off turnovers. They're up there in sacks. What is it in your mind that's missing that you can provide?
Well, I don't know, Ed. We're going to go about it trying to put the players in the best position, and then go from there. Trying to continue to do the good things they've done. They've been a very pressure-based defense, which I love. They've got some really good pressure players. We've lost some good players too, but I think there might be a little bit of a mixture of pressure and coverage and disguise and things like that maybe can help us. And maybe not get as many turnovers or all those, but I think if you go back and look at my history throughout the time, there's been a lot of sacks, a lot of pressure, low scoring games, so that's really what we want to try and do is keep the scores down, and if we get opportunities to get turnovers, interceptions, and sacks, and so be it.
Is there a real focus on the run defense, which
I think there was some stuff that we got to comment on there. First off, I want to say something about this with the turnovers. There's a lot of people who are, worried about, the Cowboys turnovers, they're not going to get as many turnovers. Well,
no, you won't need them.
But here's the thing though, right? I think that they can still get as many turnovers as they got this past season, because when we talk about, the turnovers possibly regressing with this defense this year, they already regressed from the previous 2 seasons when they led the league in turnovers. The previous 2 seasons, I believe in 2021, they had 33. In 2022, they had 34. This year, they only had 26. Those in 21 and 22, they led the league in takeaways. In 2023, they were 13th in the league in takeaways. So the takeaways, like the thing that Dan Quinn's defense is predicated on, he was above average in that particular aspect when it comes to that. So, and
right.
On top of the fact that in 2022, Trayvon Diggs only had 3 interceptions, teams stopped throwing the ball to him. So,
right.
That's just a level of context that I want to add, because I'm hearing like we're not going to get as many turnovers, and maybe that's the case, but we did regress in that aspect.
People, they think of things. It's good to do this sometimes, right? Depending, like if you're stressed out, it's good to compartmentalize and think of things in a vacuum, right? But when you look at turnovers and you say we're going to get less turnovers, that means you're being attacked less. Why? Because your coach is putting you in position where he's not gambling as much. Like he's putting it out there where he's like, hey, look, this is what we're running. This is how we're running it. And when he runs that too high safety look, you're not going to get as many targets. You're not going to have quarterbacks letting the ball go as readily because they can't assess what's going on. You get turnovers when teams think they know you, and then you bait them into doing something that they probably shouldn't do, and based off of your talent and your readiness for that particular play. But we also see it's feast or famine when you gamble. And so for every game that we had where we had a lot of turnovers, we also had games where we couldn't stop anything, like that Green Bay game. So taking it where you put a governor on that defense, where you put a lid on it, so to speak, and they can't just go off on you because they feel like it, you know what I mean? And they have to assess. I watched Aaron Rodgers against Zimmer's defense for hours, right? I watched several games of Aaron Rodgers having to play him. And that was the benefit of having him in Minnesota for so long. It was like you get a lot of Aaron Rodgers footage. Aaron Rodgers did not play well consistently against Zim. And the reason being is it doesn't matter how good of a pre-snap quarterback you are. You don't, because everything looks the same. So when he talks about disguise, because everything looks the same, I don't care who you are. I watch a lot of film, right? And I don't know what's going on until after he snaps the ball, because everything looks exactly the same. So the same setup where I'll see Harrison Smith blitz off the edge, that same look where they're just double A gap pressure and he's standing off the edge of off the line in the box. That same look where he'll back up 5, 6, 7 times. Sometimes he's in coverage against the tight end. Sometimes he's in zone. Sometimes he's playing hook to flat. He'll blitz, but it looks exactly the same every time. So the quarterback has no way of knowing what's happening until after he snaps the ball. And that creates a quarterback that has to hold the ball longer than you would like. We don't know they would like. That creates more sacks for. That's why he said that we'll probably get more sacks because he creates coverage sacks. That's the reason why Everson Griffith or a Daniil Hunter may look better in his scheme than they would in another scheme because you're looking at them as a guy who can get off the ball and just get a lot of sacks because they have a lot of sacks. But their sacks come from second effort or pressure or just straight hustle. That's why D Law will look good or Sam Williams will look good, even though, pass rush move or quick beating their opponent, how fast they beat their opponent doesn't really matter because he's going to buy you time with the fact that quarterback's going to have to hold the ball and figure out what's going on for at least a second or two. He's buying you that.
Yeah, perfect assessment there. And, like when we talk about Micah Parsons being maybe the best pass rusher in football, he's going to get more sacks this year because of the fact that, like, Micah Parsons was getting the type of sacks that he was getting with teams being able to manipulate the Cowboys secondary the past few seasons, to be honest with you, because like my problem with the Cowboys defense was they had an identity, which was get turnovers. The problem is it's a volatile identity, right? Like we talk about it all the time, like turnovers come in bunches. And when that's your identity, now it's like, all right, we need to play in this spot. Hey, Deron Bland, go jump this route and try and get an interception. Oh, wait, they just ran a sluggo off this route. Like they ran a sluggo route and now they're getting up the field and they have a 25-yard gain. That's why I didn't love that identity. And to me, it was never really like consistent. I thought Dan Quinn he was, that San Francisco game, and I'm sorry, the playoff San Francisco game where they held them to 19 points, where he was really utilizing his personnel. Like he actually did a very good job utilizing his personnel in that game. I was just like, all right, like that defense, just, add a few pieces or two, which they did that season. Now we're good. And then they went into this year and it was just like, all right, like what are we doing? Like we have Leighton Vander Esch lined up as defensive end. Leighton Vander Esch is not going to line up as defensive end in Mike Zimmer's scheme.
Right. The reason that I look at a Dan Quinn and I was pissed is because the amount of experience that he has to do that, and lay that type of performance out there as far as his personnel usage and so on. But yeah, so the reason that performance kind of pissed me off is because like I know the experience that you have, and but when they say he got lazy, I can understand that because that's why you would keep certain guys on the field that don't need to be on the field. The reason Vander Esch and Kurse are on the field is because they're the ones who understood his scheme the best, right? And they can communicate it the best. But in Zim's scheme, everyone knows their job to a certain degree and they understand what they're supposed to be doing. I don't think that was the case in Dallas. I think we needed guys to kind of help guys line up, help guys get into position. We've even seen in that Arizona game where Kurse tells Gilmore to play man, right, against a particular guy. And it was really supposed to be cover 3, but he told him to play man. And then that became a big play because Gilmore followed his man all the way across the field. And when they did that crossing route into what would have been Gilmore's zone, he wasn't there. But that was because Kurse told him to play man right before. You can see Kurse telling him because he didn't understand what he was supposed to be doing. Those types of things are the reason why, they were able to tie us in knots at times because you knew you had to keep certain guys on the field at all times in order to run his defense. I don't think we'll have that problem with them. Everybody will know that you'll do your job. You'll know your job. Doesn't matter how talented you are, or you will not be on the field.
And one question that I want to ask you before we get back into this interview, there was something coming out of the defensive room where they were running their own stunts.
That is idiotic.
So describe to me in the audience why that is a terrible idea.
Okay, so right, based off of certain looks, I understand your tendencies as a player, as a team. Meaning, I'm scouting the Cowboys, and I want to know, based off of history, in film, when do they like to run stunts, and what sets do they like to run them out of? So when I see them in certain alignments, what are they doing, and when are they doing it? Right. Once I understand that, right, that quarterback or that or that offensive coordinator understands what audibles and what checks to go into based off the looks that you're giving them. So if you're running a stunt and I'm running a draw or a gap run scheme right up the middle, and you have your nose tackle or 3-tech stunting out of the middle, right? Because you're thinking pass. That's why teams like Green Bay used to kill us with Aaron Jones. Those slasher type backs would kill us because if you have a smart quarterback that understands what's going on in front of him, he's just going to audible into something that allows them the advantage in that particular play. So what I'm saying is you're not consistently getting any type of run fits from a team that stunts whenever they want to, because you don't they do it whenever they feel like it. It's not like a situational thing, or it's not like, hey, we want you to do it this much per game. It's whenever you want to, you can stunt. And when you have a team that doesn't know its job in the first place, meaning they're not staying in position to make plays, you got guys that are stunting off the edge, trying to get into the A gap, so they're giving up the edge, and then the guys behind them, like a guy like Clark or Marquise Bell, have to replace that. So if you stunt and you're D-Law and Jalen Smith had a great chemistry with this. You can go back to the Texans game versus that Texans game that made Jalen Smith famous for chasing down what's his name, Watson? Watson, yeah. Watch that game. Whenever he stunted, you would see D-Law turn around to Jalen, and Jalen say, "I got you," or he'll tap him on his hip to let him know that I have contained now. You can stunt inside. For the last 3 seasons, I've seen us do this so consistent, where pin and pulls only work on us. You know what a pin and pull is, right?
Yeah, you pin.
Okay, we're why do you
think?
think wide receivers are able to pin D-Law or Micah Parsons? You think a wide receiver can block Micah Parsons? No.
Hell no.
But the reason it works is because they're so hell bent on stunting that a wide receiver will stand in the C gap, just stand there, and as soon as you stunt inside, they will just help you along. They help you get inside because that's where you want to go anyway, and there's no one replacing you as the contain guy on the second level or on the third level. No safety or linebacker is replacing you in that gap. If that's not happening, you're going to get out to the edge and on those corners as a running back anytime you want. And then we're chasing the play instead of making the play. And you might have called the perfect play as a defensive coordinator, but now the defensive line's integrity has ruined everything you've called because they've stunted out of position. So I hope that wasn't too long-winded, but that's what happens. Like you'll have guys that are in position to make the play from the start of the play, but they're willingly getting out of there for you. And I thought we got rid of that when we brought Quinn here, because that's what Rod Marinelli's teams were doing too. I don't like it. I can't stand it.
Yeah, and like when you're stunting on rundowns, there is a good possibility that you're stunting like where one of the defenders is going, you're stunting exactly where the offensive line wants to move you to. And you kind of just did their job for them.
Yeah.
That happens a lot. And it's like when you talk about the pin pull, I don't think pin pull worked on any other team in the league more than it worked against Dallas. When teams wanted to run pin pull on Dallas, they ate us alive. Buffalo, Arizona, those teams ate us alive when they wanted to run pin pull. So, schematically, I just thought that last year there were a lot of breaks in containment and a lot of the stuff you were talking about with the stunts, but that was a great explanation.